special podcast today, and I've invited two mothers on our show. Welcome. Name?
My name is Christina Travis.
Okay. All right, Christina. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and what happened to your son?
My son, his name is Antonio Hardy, and he was murdered at Cooper's gas station on September the 18th, 2023. He was my only biological child. I never had grandchildren or anything like that, and I'm emotional right now, so forgive me if my voice cracks. My son was not a saint. However, he wasn't a bad person. And when I learned that my son had been shot, it was videos that were taken, and they left my son lying on the ground, videotaping him bleeding out instead of trying to get him help. Mm-hmm. So I chose not to have a funeral. I just chose to have a memorial because I was not going to allow anybody else to videotape my son and disrespect him. It's the way they did, because he was not disrespectful to anybody in that neighborhood. And if they knew him, they knew, and they called him Elo. Elo was a really good guy. He was nice to everybody, respectful to his elders. And so I don't know why this happened, but it broke my heart and shattered it into 1,000 pieces.
I'm so sorry for your loss, Miss Christina.
Thank you.
And how old was he?
Antonio would have turned 34 October the 14th.
Okay. And they've apprehended someone?
They apprehended someone, but I want everybody that was involved.
Okay.
Because I didn't see the videos. However, his dad told me that it was a setup, but I know it was more than that, because I know it was a setup because one of the young men who was there, the guilt is eating him up, and he took money off my son while he was dying. He took the money out of his pocket, and the guilt was eating him so badly that he had to find somebody to find me, and I knew he had took the money from Tony, because when he gave me $600 of the money that he stolen off Antonio, I've always had Antonio respect money. So you line up every dollar. You line up every 10 or 5. And so when he gave me the $600, it was blood on the money.
And it was lined up.
And it was all lined up. So I knew he took the money. And he says, well, I told everybody that I took it. No, you stole it because you had something to do with it. And when I told the Peoria police to go and check, it's like they drug their feet. I told them to go and check that girl, because that girl made the statement, if I can't have you, Antonio, nobody else is. An hour later, my son is bleeding out at Cooper's gas station.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Unfortunately, this happens a lot in urban areas and that. And next we'll have Miss Rachael Parker just give us a briefing of her story.
You say it happens a lot, and it does, but it's so sad that now it happens so frequently that people just blow it off like it was just a trip to McDonald's or something,
Yeah. It's so sad.
It's really hard to even, today was a hard day, because I had to talk with the state's attorney today, and
okay.
How can I say this? When you feel like people aren't valued, it's hard to accept that, because all of our sons had value, regardless of what people thought about them. Nobody had the right to do what they did to any of our kids.
Right.
And for somebody to think that they have that power and let alone get away with it is just unreal. And hard, very hard to accept. And I don't know why people don't open their mouths and say something.
Right.
How can you live with yourself knowing that they saw your son knowing that they saw my son. And they just keep it to themselves like it's nothing. And I understand being afraid, too, that, maybe they were threatened or maybe they're, just scared to say something because, of course, they don't want something to happen to them. But I don't see how you can live with yourself. I really don't. My son's Ryan Greenwood. June 3rd, 2020, he was killed in a drive-by shooting while he was standing, talking to a friend outside on Bigelow, 1700 block of Bigelow, about 11:30, June 3rd, at night. He was talking to his friend at the car. Another car came by and just blasted the whole car and him, and nobody saw a thing, even though he was at a birthday party where I'm sure there was a lot of people. People claim they were inside the party, like a few doors down. They didn't see anything. But you can't tell me that somebody wasn't outside.
That's right.
You just cannot tell me that there was nobody outside. But everybody was interviewed. Nobody saw anything. And that just makes me sick to my stomach still today. I can't even drive past the emergency room without everything coming back that night. It's just, even when I try, it's just automatic that you get that sick feeling in your stomach and it just comes back to you. And I thought, I'd get over it. It's been 4 years, but nope, it's still there. And I don't know what to say to all the moms that their hearts are so heavy because of these people, if you want to call them that are out there that have committed these murders and are walking free and smoking, drinking, having a good time with their families, and then look at us. It's not right. It's just not right.
So what was your experience with the police department?
Mine was pretty good, honestly. I really can't say that it was bad. It started out a little rocky because the detective that was working on the case, I found out later, had a son that was going through some health issues, and he couldn't devote his whole mind to the case. I wish the police chief at the time would have taken him off the case, knowing that he was going through that. How can you dedicate your time and your efforts into something when you got something so heavy going on in your own personal life?
Right.
I would have hoped that the police chief at that time would have said, I need to pull you off this case because,
What chief was that?
I don't even remember who the chief was.
Was that Chief Mitchell?
No,
No?
it was the one
Okay.
after him. Who was?
Lauren Marion?
Yes, that's who it was.
Very
Okay.
nice guy. I liked him.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure I liked him too, but
Okay.
as a manager of people now in my office, if I knew somebody was going through something heavy and I had something important for them to work on, I don't know that I would let them. So I wish he would have, at that time, not allowed him to work on it and let someone else that could really pour into it. Because the second detective that got the case, after I waited and waited to hear back and didn't, and then I called and said, hey, what's going on? And then finally they told me who it was transferred to, and he immediately got on it. And he even said he wished he would have had it from the beginning because he knows he could have solved it.
Wow.
And so that's just another, hiccup in
Yeah.
the whole situation. But he's done, what he can do, and now it's sitting in the state's attorney's office.
So when it first happened, the process is that you get the call from the Peoria Police Department, right? And then they come and
No.
what was your experience?
I got a call from my granddaughter's mom telling me that Ryan had gotten shot. And I was just down the street from our house, so I immediately got in the car, went down there. The police wouldn't let me go to the scene, so as I saw the ambulance pull away, I decided to run back to the car and follow the ambulance. So I
Wow.
followed the ambulance to the hospital, but when I got there, I couldn't even get out of the car. I couldn't move. I just sat there.
Wow.
And it was during COVID, so they wouldn't let people in. I could see people outside. When I finally got the nerve to get out of the car, a part of me wanted to go straight to the ambulance, but I tried to walk that way, and then they, stopped me because they said you can't go that way. And so I went to the door, told them why I was there. They said they would go and check to see if that was him, and then later they came out and said that it was, and then I waited outside until they came and told me.
Wow. So how about you, Miss Christina?
My experience with Peoria Police
Yes.
was absolutely horrible. I'm very disappointed. We rushed to the hospital, and we get there, and I do remember collapsing because I was overwhelmed. And then when I came to, there was a really nice guy named Taylor. He was part of the chaplain ministry there, and
With the Peoria Police Department?
no,
Oh.
no.
With the...
The Peoria Police didn't even come and talk to me when I got to the hospital. They didn't say a word.
Okay, so the chaplain at the hospital, at the trauma center,
Right.
OSF.
OSF.
Okay.
He approached me, and he smiled at me, and he said, I had a chance, and when he smiled at me, I knew he talked to my son, because if you talk to my son, you're going to smile, because he's always going to give
Right.
you he had an impeccable smile. So he said, I had a chance with talking to Antonio, he's in surgery right now. And so I was like, okay, so I sat there. Police never said anything to me. All I see is the police officers taking brown paper bags, and they're going into one part of the hospital. I don't know what was going on. So finally, they allowed me to go inside the building. That was that.
So wait a minute, back up, I'm sorry. So you mean no one from the police department called you on contact of the death?
No.
Nobody, no coroner called you on the contact to verify this was your child?
Oh, I was at the hospital.
You were at the hospital?
I was at the
okay.
hospital, but I never even got to see I saw a body bag come out. I never got
body
to see.
You
bag?
never got to see him?
I never got to see my son.
You never got to see him.
I never got to see my son.
Oh, my God.
I am so sorry. Woo, this is worse than I thought. As far as the advocacy for the victims of crime, especially when it comes to gun violence, especially when it comes to this type of a death. I mean, I thought that it was up to the coroner to come to verify the body.
I did talk to the coroner. He came to the room that I was in, but
Okay.
he didn't, or the hospital let me see Ryan, but they wouldn't let me touch him, which I don't understand that. But they let me see him. He was halfway in the bag. They just let me see like the top.
Top part of them.
Right, but
I wasn't
Okay.
afforded that opportunity. When I saw
That-
the coroner taking my son out, I knew it was my son. When they were going out the door, I said, that's my son.
How could you tell?
I felt it.
did
I
you
can
ask
feel
him
it.
if you could see him?
I didn't ask. And we were in the hall. He was going out of the door
In passing.
in passing.
Oh my God.
And I saw the black bag, and I said, that is my baby. That's my son. And I wasn't going to, and maybe I could have, but I wasn't going to ask you to open up the bag in the hall.
Right.
I wasn't going to do that.
Right. So did they tell them that you were his mother?
I don't know.
Did they tell the police officers know that you were
There,
there?
yeah.
I don't know. I never talked to a police officer when I was at the
You
hospital.
never talked. Well, what about the hospital? What about the chaplain?
The chaplain wanted to know who the mother was.
And
He
you
said it was me.
verified.
And I told him it was
Okay.
me. And then I think the hospital
is at
security,
OSF, right?
I think the
Okay.
hospital security said only certain people she can
Right,
choose
can go
who
in.
I wanted to
Yeah,
go
that's
in.
what they told
But
me.
I never spoke to the Peoria Police Department. No, ma'am. Until the next day.
But when did you talk to the coroner?
I never spoke to the coroner.
You never talked to the coroner.
No. I called the coroner's office because I wanted to know where my son's belongings were.
Okay.
I never spoke to Mr. Jamie. I spoke with a young lady, and she says, "Oh,
Mr.
there
Harwood,
was Mr.
okay.
Harwood." She said there was a necklace. I said, "Okay." And then someone said, "Oh, there was a bracelet." I know it was a necklace. It had 700 on it, but no one gave me any property. I have nothing.
The police should have all of that. They take everything.
Well, I'm gonna tell you about that too, whenever you're ready for that.
That's
part.
what we said. How were
So the next day.
you treated by the police?
So the next day, I'm not able to get up and move around, so I had my little sister. I said, "Hey, would you go over to that young lady's house and get Tony's keys, get his car, just tell her to give you everything. Well, she made this huge scene, and she said, this is mine, and blah, blah, blah. Then finally I met Detective 974. He was the one who was handling the case.
That's his badge number.
That's his badge number. I'll
Okay.
never forget the badge number because he was rude.
Right. Oh, my. Okay.
And I played that lottery number because he was rude. He was extremely rude.
974.
974.
Okay.
I would say his name, but that's between him
Right.
and his God. So I said, I just want my son's belongings. Now, for some reason, they released his car to the young lady. She, not his wife.
Right.
They didn't have grandchildren. He never had any kids.
Right.
So they gave his property,
His property.
to
To-
her because she came down there with his ID, made a story, said that I need the car because we got to get our grandkids to school and blah blah blah. What Antonio didn't have any grandchildren.
Right.
Antonio
Or
never had any
kids.
kids.
Right.
And they released his vehicle to a girl who has 2 DUIs, not 1, 2 DUIs. When I called to the police station, I asked. The young man told me, and I hope their phone lines are recorded. He said, "We don't have a magical database to know whether or not that's his wife, or if she was next of kin." I said, "So when you pull people
What?
over, what's that database for?" Yeah, because now I'm angry. So I'm there at her house trying to get my son's belongings. Her daughter are taking everything out of his car, and so I asked the officer, "Could you run those plates? I'm letting you know this car is registered to my son. It's my son's. I need my son's stuff."
Right.
They ran the plates. They said it's registered Antonio Hardy. The detective told him go. They still did not give us the card. The detective said, "You're gonna have to take it up with a judge. He makes more money than me."
That's what the detective said?
Detective 974 said, "You take," and I asked him, I said, "Is your body camera on? Because I don't think your chief would like to know, would appreciate
Right.
how you're speaking to a grieving mother." And then he,
Right.
back.
And this was just last year, September of 2023.
September 19th is the day after
Okay.
when he disrespected me the way he did.
Right.
Yeah.
That is so unbelievable.
And she still has his car.
And she still has his car. This is 2024.
She still has his car. They've wrecked his car. She's maxed out his
And
credit
nothing.
card. Nothing.
So okay, this is really strange. But and then your experience with the Peoria Police Department, Rachel, was.
I'm glad it was not like that.
Okay.
I would have an attorney by now.
I'm not trying to compare stories, but oh my goodness, these handling of the bodies, the handling of the families in the city of Peoria. It's come to my attention that when it comes to death and these young men or these people killed by gun violence mostly, seems like they are not handled with care. Last week we had Crime Victims' Rights Week, and it was to bring the agencies together to find out what would they do with a victim of a crime. And we had our chief of police there, and we had some other people in the community that was there, and Rachel, you were there as well. And we listened to the county has a victim's advocate who actually comes out. Her name is Amy Chanel. She actually goes out to most victims,
She said she actually went out on the scene.
on the scene, on the county side.
Of the county.
Yes, of Peoria County. In the city, we do not have a victim's advocate. I have asked the city. I've been to city council with this concern couple years ago. And I've also even talked with the county victims advocate, who actually, she said she does follow-ups. Has anybody followed up with you after the deaths of your son? Because I can tell you in 2006, nobody followed up with mine. How about you?
No,
What year?
2020.
2020, Rachel? Christina? 2023? Nobody followed up? The last victims advocate we had in the city of Peoria was Blackwell, Linda Glacken. That was the last time that the city of Peoria had a victims advocate to come and follow up with these families. Now,
What was the group, that one group that they got rid
Peoria
of?
Community Against Violence,
Yeah.
PCAF.
PCAP. Oh, I
Yeah,
like
now
them.
they came.
That's what
They
it.
came
That's
to my house the next day.
PCAF.
Yeah.
PCAF stands for Peoria Community Against Violence.
Okay, now I don't know if they were with the city or the county or whatever.
They are with
but-
the city. They were, under the umbrella with, started off with Jerry Brady. So they were kind of standing in the gap for, a victim's
Yeah,
advocate.
now they did come the next day. They were very helpful. and
Okay.
Gave us pamphlets on like counseling and other services that you could
Okay.
utilize. in
I
that,
never received
but
anything.
I don't remember what they gave me,
Okay.
but they did bring some stuff. to
They
the
did?
house. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So that means that someone did come and reach out to you.
Right.
Did they do a follow-up with you, Rachel?
They did. Mm-hmm.
I mean, after they came out the first initial time, do they keep calling or
I can't think of
visiting to see?
Chris somebody.
Mhm.
What's Chris's last name?
Chris Johnson?
Yeah, he
Mhm.
followed up.
Okay,
By just calling and, seeing if there was anything I needed or.
okay. So that's all they did was just call?
Mhm.
You mean they didn't have any classes or they couldn't refer you to?
They had given me some information about
Mhm.
counseling and that the first time.
Mm-hmm,
And he just reminded me that it's there. But,
okay.
when
Alright.
you're going through all that, you can give everybody everything on the first 2 days or week. Or,
Right.
You don't remember half the stuff.
Yeah,
that they
not
give
during
you.
that time, because you're in the part of grief, of
Yeah,
shock and
yeah.
denial.
So to me, it would be better for them, they could come the first time, but then they should make it a point to come, maybe
To follow up,
at least a week or two later,
right.
or even longer than that, when you somewhat got your mind back, but
Okay.
I don't know.
And then how about you, Miss Christina?
How about me, what?
You said no one came
No. When I
from the city September, by the time September came, PCAF was no longer doing a whole lot of stuff. So was there any agencies or resources that reached out to you?
No. Not a one. Not a one. Not one. And there was a lady that works at the courthouse. I think her name is Emily.
Mm-hmm.
But that's for when I
Okay,
went to
that's
court.
what, okay, so, all right, okay. So before you went to court, because they have one person, right, Miss Christina, for the murder of your son, right?
Right, they have someone in
Okay.
custody. Mhm.
So it's in trial now,
Correct.
right?
It's getting ready to go. Mhm.
Okay, all right. Now, the victim's advocate is who you're referring to, who helps you in the court case, or she assists you. So she's the state's attorney's victim's advocate, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And how has that been for you?
To be honest, no. First, it was. To be honest, no. I'll just leave it like that.
What was your experience with the state's attorney's victim's advocate in the court case?
We had a court date, and then I get there, and they said, "Oh, it's no one's here, wrong room."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking around trying to find somebody to help me.
Mm-hmm.
No one. So now I lost pay from work because they told me there was nobody there. And so then I called, left a message on the phone, and the next thing you know, she says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. they should have told you to come to this room or whatever. So, no, so that was the first thing, slapped in the face. Second thing, I'm waiting for her, and then she says, oh, my apologies, my daughter had a Nutcracker rehearsal or play at the Civic Center, so,
Okay.
and then she apologized. She says, I'm sorry that we keep dropping the ball on you, but we're going to get this better for you. But by this time, it's just left a sour taste.
So
in my
after
mouth.
your son got killed in September of 2023, you had, how long did it take you before you had your first, court appearance? For them to choose a jury and all that?
They haven't chosen a jury.
They haven't got that far yet?
No.
So right now, it's just been continued?
Several times continued, yes.
Because he need representation?
He's got representation.
Okay.
His lawyer has to, from the last paperwork that I received, I couldn't even go to court this last time because it just drains me. And I don't want to keep looking at this kid who murdered my son sit there with this cocky attitude. He's
Right.
cocky, he's arrogant.
Right.
And he's trying to make sure the judge says his name right. You're a non-factor. Nobody cares what your name is. You killed my son.
Yeah.
But
Unfortunately, when after the person has been killed, it's really not that our children are not the non-factor, but it's really the person on trial that the law is trying to make sure that they get the best representation, because you don't want them to try to get them in the court to actually have a hearing and then find out they were not they were getting it off early because they were misrepresented or didn't have enough support on and unfortunately this is part of the judicial system, and he's not even guilty of a crime until a judge in the court, the jury have found him to be guilty, right? So until that part happens, and sometimes I know they continue for whatever reasons, whether it's representation for, have to have a lawyer, an attorney to represent them, or either, there's some other evidence that they want to get, or they have different reasons. So when you were going to court, Ms. Christina, with your victim's advocate, the state's attorney's victim's advocate, were they able to tell you why that these dates were kept being continued, or after she forgot to tell you the one time?
yeah, she said that they had to, his lawyer or his representation had to review the video footage.
Representative, okay.
Yeah, so he had to do that. So this kept being continued.
Okay.
And I believe it's coming up again next month. But
Okay.
hopefully I'll be in a whole other state. I
Okay.
don't want to be here anymore.
Okay. Well,
I'm sending his dad.
right. I beg your pardon?
I'm going to send his dad. I don't,
Okay, okay. Well, at least, the court case has gotten started. And I know that you had concerns that you want to have the other people involved included as well, to be tried
Correct.
in court as well. Okay, and then, but I know the whole court system thing is just a total nother heartbreak for any parent who's lost a child to have to go through. But as a victim advocate myself, and not having the resources back for me in 2006, Mothers War on Violence wasn't even in existence then, but I began volunteering in the courtroom for families who are survivors of homicide, so that they wouldn't have to be alone, so that you would know, or someone could communicate with you on how these things was happening. I had worked with other victims advocates in the past through the Peoria County, State's Attorney's Office, and we kind of shared the responsibility. And so therefore, when a victim, a survivor would come in and they have to go to court, and it has to be scheduled for whatever reasons, sometimes the victim's advocate with the state was able to help them understand the process and sometimes not. So that's when me being a survivor of this whole court process, it came in handy. So whatever the victim's advocate from the state's attorney's side was not able to do, I was able to do because I did follow up with them after court, after hours. Were you aware that those services are available to you in our community?
No.
Well, I'm going to let you know they are. So sometimes, in between, me working another job and stuff like that, I'm able to come. But even if I'm not able to be there, I do phone consultations, and sometimes I can come there to help out with lunch if there is a situation where in these court cases there are jurors, and there's not very many places to eat around downtown. But I know that the juror is not supposed to come in contact with the family members of these people who are about to, be tried, or you know what I mean, or the deceased victim. So anyway, so there's been times that we've been able to provide a lunch or something like that, just to help out with the family. There's different organizations that we're affiliated with to give support to the family while they go on to court. And we have support groups for families that are grieving, and they meet every fourth Sunday of the month. And then, Miss Rachael, you've not been to court just yet.
No.
And where are things standing with that?
I'm not sure. Just, it's a waiting game right now until they get either somebody to speak up or, that's really just need somebody to say what they saw.
Now, that's strange that we're waiting for somebody to come up and see what they saw, because he had friends there. Ryan had friends there, and you're saying your son had friends there too. He was with associates, the other people that he was there with. So, and when we're talking about, friends and relationships, and I can even attest to say that in my own situation with my son's case, and there were other friends that were there. There was evidence to show the track from where that they had came from. It was through an alley, and it was showing that there was evidence that there was more than one person there, but there was only one person that they took in the case as well, that ended up, getting it. But after 2 weeks, I think I just lost it, and that's where the whole idea of who killed me came out of. For me, having 2 weeks, I can't imagine 2 years, 2 days, 2 whatever. I mean, and then 20, because I've known some families have had 20 years of not knowing who killed their child. But yet, I've noticed, I don't know if it's because of, black and brown people, it seems to be a lot of who killed me. I mean, how come we're having such a hard time with the law enforcement saying they look to the community? The community is saying they look for the law enforcement. We look for the detectives to do their jobs. And then we have mothers who are calling down there or going down there. I've heard stories from mothers going to the police department, giving them all the information that they have.
Yep.
Like you, Miss Christina. What was the situation?
I called them. I told them there was 3 phones. They're only checking one. I said, check her phone. Check that guy who gave me the $600.
Right.
Check his phone. I gave them the phone number.
Oh.
I even have video footage of the guy around the girl's house waiting for my son to come out the door when he told her it was over with. But my husband said, don't give it to him. Just let it be, because they're dropping ball. So my husband said, just let it be. But I'm like, this dude is standing here lurking for my son. But my husband said, let it be. He
And you
said,
can
because
see
the police,
that.
oh, you can see it. But my husband said, just let it be. A detective, a police officer has not even come to my home.
Did you feel that the officers just don't care about the situation? Is it because there's so many black kids getting killed all the time that they just are just like, oh, this is just another one? Or do you just,
I wouldn't say that. I would probably say that they're overwhelmed. I would say that they're busy. And because right after Antonio was murdered, I think 2 days later was another one.
yes,
So it's like boom and boom, boom. They can't keep up.
yeah.
And, and it was just, in my opinion, I think it was just a lot. And so, like,
And it is, because I have talked to the different chiefs even over times, and all of them have expressed that, that there seems to be an uptick. And every time it gets warm, I mean, you guys notice too, there's an uptick in crime. So, and and us just trying to figure out how to find purpose through our pain. And for my son to be killed, and they said he was killed because they said they got rid of snitches at that time. And they seen him talking to the police, and this is the reason why they said he was killed. I mean, there's another story out there as well, but the thing about it is that sometimes some of these people, they make deals with the state's attorney's office, and sometimes it's not that they're untouchable, it's just that sometimes you're not able to get all of them because of whatever that situation is. But anyway, so since the death of my son, I have found purpose through my pain. And the only reason I think I found any purpose through my pain is because I created resources that were not available in our community. And look, here we are now, going on almost 17, 18 years later, okay, because it was back in 2017. 2006, I'm sorry. We have a plethora of organizations and all these things, but I noticed when we had Crime Victims' Rights Week, the one thing that I noticed in talking to the agencies that were there is that one organization didn't know what the other organizations were doing. So it sounds like we have a collaboration problem within the agencies, and we're talking about agencies that get the money for the federal grants for trauma, and we can have trauma, yes, and we can have organizations who do that, and then we also can have the police department working together with those organizations, and now they're talking about adding social workers. I think that if we had a hub that we could come together and just have a sharing point like we try to do with Mothers War on Violence, non-for-profit, just to have a close-knit coalition just so we can better serve the families. So maybe if our coalition worked a lot better together, instead of everybody doing their own thing, we could have more support for our families. And that could be a way to prevent violence and maybe reduce it, because we kind of have a little bit, what are your thoughts on that? A little grasp on what's happening. What are your thoughts about it?
I don't know that it would reduce it, but it would help the people going through to know that those services are there. But you don't know that you need the services until it happens. So the problem is, how do you, unless you're connected with the police, you wouldn't know. Like, I didn't know about your son. If there was a way that a group would have known, then maybe we could have come to try to say, hey, this is what worked for us, or this is what our detective did, or, and then that could have helped maybe steer yours a little different. I don't know.
Well, for one, we don't have that close-knit organization that really helps survivors. So with our support group, we get together the fourth Sunday of the month. That's the John Buckley Memorial Garden Support Group, and we work on getting together once a month. And that's kind of hard to come out for a support group, right? Okay, but until we get to the point for our survivors, until we build up that survivor people, those persons, to become advocates, to become working in that community, I think it's going to be hard, because that's one thing we don't have in Peoria. We don't have actual survivors that are working in that field who are social workers. We have just a few. But I think we had OSF Strive on the podcast, Miss Barbara, who's an OSF Strive counselor, who was one, and she had never told anybody about her experience because she didn't want the label on her back. So later on one of our shows, it's maybe the third podcast or second, but she admits that her son was killed as well. But like I said, here in Peoria, there are not very many people who find that purpose through their pain to work to help others. So when I started those resources, for me, it was therapeutic for me. So I don't want the police doing everything for me. I want to be able to be part of the solution, because it kept my mind busy. It kept my mind going to help other people. It meant more for me to find a purpose through this pain, instead of me trying to question, why is this happening to me? Because there's nothing we can do about it. We can't change the situation. So, but I do think that working together to try to figure out ways how we can help other survivors is a missing key to the table, don't you? Do you agree?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, and now we can. Now I know it's still kind of early for you to think about, Miss Christina, about what could you do to make purpose out of this pain. But be thinking about that type of thing. Thinking about what we can do for as long as you're here to help our other people who are here. What would you say to a mother or any family member who just freshly gone through this? What would you say to them?
There was immediately after Antonio's memorial, his friend stood and held me up at his memorial, and they took a picture with me. And 2 weeks later, he was murdered.
The friend?
The friend.
Oh, my.
And he said, "Mama, we got you. We got you, Mama." That's what he called me. And 2 weeks later, and I wanted to reach out to his mother to tell her I'm so sorry.
Right.
To fix her a meal, to just sit with her and hold her hand. And I had learned that this was her second child that was murdered.
Oh, my.
So she's lost two sons back to back in a year.
And what was his name?
I can't remember.
Okay.
But if I could do some purpose, I would be right there with that mom, telling her that information that Miss Rachel gave to me, because nobody gave me the information that Miss Rachel did.
What did you give her, Miss Rachel?
I don't remember.
You gave.
I came down
What
there
did
to
Miss
get my
Rachel
license
give you?
fixed. And you
I'm
said
sorry,
they would
I
help
just- I
with.
can't remember.
That's okay.
You said there was some paperwork that would help with your funeral
The
expenses.
paper I
yes.
gave you.
Yes,
And the
right.
thing is, I didn't receive that paperwork from the advocate until 3 weeks after you told me.
And I only found out about that.
Because I brought it to you.
Yeah, but I had first heard it at the funeral home.
See,
Crying compensation.
Yeah.
Victims'
She
compensation.
didn't say exactly what it was, but she said that there's a form you can fill out.
And the thing is, during that time, people need help filling out that paperwork. That
Oh, yeah.
process is long.
It is.
That process, you have to
Yeah.
think. You got to remember all your receipts and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And somebody needs to sit down with these moms.
So nobody from the police department came to help fill out this paper or
No.
say nothing about it, or
I
to
received
see
my
that.
paperwork.
So you didn't even know you could even get reimbursement to help out with funeral costs.
No, I received my paperwork probably after Miss Rachael had told me about it. But
Okay.
a doctor that I work with at the hospital, she brought it to work for me. But I'm just like, and I thought, you know what, this is too much paperwork. I didn't
Right.
feel like it. I was just like, forget it.
And your brain is scatterbrained.
My
So
brain.
nobody even talks about what you're going through
No.
at the time
No.
that this thing happened. You can't even stay focused, right?
Miss Yolanda, I've had major memory loss.
That is part of trauma.
Major loss. And I quit my job. I couldn't function.
And that's the other thing, having a job and trying to function the way you used to be is going to be handicapped. You're going to have a hard time keeping jobs, getting back into the work field. And how did you do it, Miss Rachael? Because you're in a political seat, and you have to keep a smile every day.
Yeah, God. That's how I got through.
Yeah,
Amen.
as the recorder. Yeah,
Because otherwise, I honestly don't know.
right.
I can't even tell you. It had to be God that got me through it, and that's keeping me upright.
Right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're over the recorder, what's your position?
County clerk.
The county
So
clerk,
it's
yeah.
a recorder
And
yeah.
right, and you're in that same building wanting to go to court. That's got to be hard some days,
It is.
It has, like I said, it messed me up mentally, emotionally, financially. My credit score has dropped. I had to go back to my
This is normal,
other job
unfortunately.
in pain, and I'm back to work. But if it rains, I'm crying because
Right.
I'm thinking about my son. And then
A smell.
a smell.
Yeah.
If I hear somebody say, "Mom," I'm turning around, and
Thinking
it's not me.
him calling you.
It's
Right,
not me.
yeah. Because every mother knows the voice of their child
Yeah.
that calls their name,
Yeah.
Mom. I have other children, and each one of them kids say my name differently. They call Ma, Mom.
Yeah. Antonio
Mommy.
would bother me like Johnny Bravo. Mama, shut up, boy. But
Yeah. And how has your pain impacted others?
my nieces.
Okay, Christina. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were
That's
talking
okay.
with Rachel.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
My nieces, and they're just so hurt, and they're like, "Titi, you got to keep going. Buka will want you to keep going." My husband, he was like, "Come on, baby, you can't give up." I just wanted to give up, and it's like hard because it's hard every day to get clothes on. It's hard every day to put shoes on. It's hard, but my husband's like, "Come on, baby, you got to move. You got to move." My nieces, "Come on, Titi, you can't quit. You can't quit." Why won't they just let me quit? I just want to quit. And it hurts them
Yeah.
to see me because I'm strong. But then I have to bring it back together. And I swear to you, I had a vision of my son. He said, "Mom, you know better than this. Get up. I'm fine." And I get up.
You get up.
I get up.
That's awesome.
I get
You're
up.
right, though. You do have to coach yourself every day.
Yeah.
Coach yourself to get up. Coach yourself to move. So it's hard. It's
After
hard.
so many years, for me, I don't know, these days they come and go far beyond, only because it's been years. So it's taken me a long time to get to this point. And, God's willing, one day you all will get to that point as well. But I still stress the statistics say within the first 5 years, if you don't get some help, you could die. The grief in itself, as I share with you, Miss Christina, it could kill you.
Yeah. They say people have died from broken hearts.
And I do know some families that I've assisted and went to that they have died of a broken heart. I've got 2 families in particular that I think of at times, and it's just like they wanted to deal with it on their own. And as they dealt with it on their own was to isolate themselves and to push everybody away.
Yeah.
And within 5 years,
Oh, wow.
they were gone. I mean, you could say it was health issues, but your health issues increase when your heart issues start happening. That And some of them, and I think sometime about the late Eddie Russell.
It's my cousin.
Is he? Okay. And I think a lot about his fight with what happened with his son and everything.
Junior, yeah.
And yeah, with Eddie Russell Jr. And within 5 years, it was
he grieved bad.
it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable, and of course, you know, like I said, and I can even say to my own experience myself, before my son got killed, I didn't have any health issues. After he got killed, all these other things started happening. I had the narrowing of my throat. It just, all of a sudden, I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I don't know if it's because I just stopped caring for myself.
Oh, wow.
But within 2 years after the murder of my son, I had to get my esophagus stretched. It was just, you know, maybe self-neglect. I don't know. But I do know that is one of the side effects that comes with, you know, losing a child through this type of death, you know, through this type of grief. And I think with any other type of, you know, losing a child, that there's some repercussions that are going to happen to our bodies. And so, yeah, so I know the health issues, the mental issues. I know the credit score drops because guess what happens, lady? We forget to pay our bills
Yeah.
because of the grief. Because this other big old tall mountain, empty space of losing a child, right?
Yes, I totally forgot. I forgot. I just had a minor setback. I just couldn't function. I could not function.
Well, I'm glad and that you guys are here today. And then, how about you, Rachael? How did it impact your pain? Impact the people around you?
I come from a family of, we hide our feelings a lot, I think. And we always try to put on that face that we're strong. So, but I could tell that it affected all of us, especially my daughter, especially. So for me, I felt like I had to be even stronger for her because I didn't want to have her fall apart. Or his kids, you know. So it's, you know, Trey and Naya and Riley that keep me going, you know, because I feel like I have to be there for them. So I didn't want them to see me fall to pieces because that would just make their lives even worse.
Right.
So, again, I just relied on praying
God.
and asking him to cover them and just so that we could get through it all. But it's hard.
It is. And Christina, how about you? With yours being so fresh, what keeps you going? What motivates you?
When I look at this, when I see my son's face, people give me cups, you know, with his
this
picture
picture
and
on
stuff.
it.
And a friend of mine, I used to send her pictures of my son all the time, and she just made a picture collage for me. And so now they're in our home, and I just see him. I just see his smile. But I don't get that call, Mom, what you doing? You up? I brought you breakfast. Open the door.
Yeah.
I don't get that cup of coffee. Mom, come on, move. You know, all I have left of him is a dog.
And hear his voice.
And
You don't get to hear his voice anymore.
Voice.
Yeah.
I don't get to hear his voice. Listen, I just, that's my son.
You know, there's lots of people who say that the story is the same for the person who's going to trial as it is to be the person that is killed, that it sends both families through the same thing.
I don't think so.
We're coming up to the different holidays and Mother's Day and Father's Day and all these different holidays, and it's not the same.
No, it's not.
It's not the same.
I'm sure it's not the same for everyone, but I think
I think it's hard, you know.
yeah. I think their pain is totally different from our pain.
I think it's totally different, because they can call them,
Right.
they can go visit them, there's a
Right.
visiting pass, right?
Right.
Okay. Ours is more like a complete, total, that's the
Yeah.
end of it on this human side, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're not gonna see him anymore. But thank God we got our faith, that we believe in the Lord, that, maybe on the other side we'll get to see him again. So when these holidays and things come up, it's not always easy, is it?
No.
You can definitely tell he's missing. Because we all get to, there's like 30 of us every holiday.
You have a big family.
And so, and a lot of times we try to talk about, either things that they did, bring them into
Happy memories.
Right. So somebody
Okay.
shares something that, they did with Ryan, or bring up a funny story. And
Mm-hmm.
we used to, during the holidays, we'd make these videos. We'd have kind of like a variety show.
Mm-hmm.
And I have all these old videos of, Ryan doing these different acting things with
Aw.
other family members. And during the holidays, we watched those.
Mm-hmm.
And it only doesn't include him, but some of my other family members that have passed away. It's just
Right.
good to bring them back
Mm-hmm.
into the holiday with us. I'm so glad that we did those. And
Mm-hmm.
so that helps a lot, just, reminiscing of the good times.
Right. And how about you, Miss Christina?
Well, when Antonio passed, it was September. His birthday was October. October 14th. Mine was the 11th. I didn't celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving was our holiday. It was me and his. And I made it through because my husband and his kids, they brought me a lot of love.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas, same thing. And now here comes Mother's Day, my first Mother's Day. My son didn't go out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
But on Mother's Day and Father's Day, because I was a single parent, he said, come on, Mom, put some clothes on. We're going out to eat. Have Mother's Day. I'm not going to have that this year. I'm not going to have that Father's Day meal. I'm not going to get that call.
Well, thanks for sharing our stories, and coming to share your personal story, because I want to tell you, for me, each time I share that story, I release a little bit of that pain every single time. It takes some time. It took me some practice, because there's times that I couldn't talk about it, but there was other times that I felt the need that everybody need to know what was happening right now. It was a warning sign. And as the years have gone by and the holidays and stuff like that, I've seen more and more families, especially in the African American community, lose more people. On a national level, there's more gun violence in bigger groups, in schools, the Valley, and all these different things that have happened. I've heard we've gone on 20 years for the Columbine shooting, and it's a lot. But when it comes to holidays for me, I've given them up some time now, and now I just I look at other people who are going into these things, and it's up to them if they want to keep going through that, because it's kind of like a rehearsing of the pain for those days, the Mother's Day, the Father's Day, the Thanksgiving, the Christmas, on and on and on, New Year, and on and on and on. And then one day I've told this story before. I kind of looked them up and found out about these different days, and it's just like it got to a point they didn't mean anything to me anymore. Because after this tragedy that happens, homicide in your family, you have a hard time putting the family back together again. So there'll be times where nobody showed up for dinner. There'll be times where I cooked all this food, and times that I celebrated these days. And me and my husband would be at the table waiting for the kids to come. I remember those cold holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day, as we looked them up, we found out that a lot of them were days that were just made up, and we have celebrated them to be traditions of men, and one day we just said we aren't going to do that to ourselves anymore, and we're just going to put our trust in the Lord, and that's pretty much what we do on holidays. But I want to thank the both of you, Miss Rachael Parker, and Miss Christina Travis, for coming into the studio today and sharing this mini biography of what has happened in our lives during a time where holidays are just about to wrap up. Okay, all right. Well, we're going to conclude, and thank you for listening to another Mother's War on Violence podcast.